Bit of a challenge getting to the Chem beds, which are, I'm sure you want to know, are Cretaceous. This is the last 4 Toyotas. Doing well.
Kem is a huge plateau forming part of natural border between Morocco and Algeria. On the top flat plateau is Algeria, down is Morocco.
So Morocco has kept the fossiliferous bit.
And all along this, from time to time, the fossil beds show on the surface, then disappear for a few miles, then show again. So, to my knowledge, I know over 16 spots. And that is the easy access one. It's very fishy. We mainly find a lot of snake vertebra, fish vertebra, spinosaur tooth. Depends on. After the storm, I hope now we can find more, because all these sites easy access, people go often, and there is not much chance to find a lot.
The Chem group of strata is very, very extensive. It's called the Chem group here in Morocco because of the Chem plateau over to the south. But in fact, these rocks go into Algeria, they can be traced into Tunisia, and in fact they can be traced into Egypt as well, where they have different formation names. So for example, in Egypt, a formation in similar fasces is called the Bahariya Formation. Now for many, many years, with the French geologists working over much of North Africa, they were always aware of a marine sequence that became non-marine, that then, with the limestone at the top, became marine again. And because this was sandwiched, a unit of non-marine strata between marine strata, and if you are in the Atlas Mountains, the marine strata are Bathonian age, and at the bottom are Bathonian, and the marine strata at the top are Cenomanian and Turonian age. They called the whole lot that was non-marine, they called it the continental, because of continental fasces, the continental intercalaire. Yeah? So if you read the old literature, you will very often hear about strata called the continental intercalaire. In the Tafilalt, that is just Cretaceous. If you are in the Atlas Mountains, and if you are over to the east, if you're in a place like Talsint and Anwal, this non-marine sequence, the bottom part of it is Upper Jurassic, and then the rest of the sequence is early Cretaceous of whatever age. There's usually a little bit of a colour difference to allow you to distinguish them. The Jurassic beds are a little bit more purpley red, the Cretaceous ones a little bit more orangey red. But it's very subtle. And you only realise that the bottom bit is Jurassic and the upper bit is Cretaceous if you map it on a broad scale, which has been possible with Google Earth, because you can now actually see the different colours, and you can see that one might thin against the other and actually be slightly truncated. But here where we are, everything that is below the limestone on the top, by the way, the limestone slumps down, as you can see, a massive landslide. Can you see that massive landslide there? Yeah. I mean, that is huge, isn't it? Yeah. The whole of the cliff just gave away. That was one big earthquake that triggered that. Everything below that limestone, until you hit the Paleozoics, we will make an assumption that it is early Cretaceous. And let me just tell you about the age. I have said it a couple of times, but not to everybody. If you read literature that was published in the 1980s and 1990s, every fossil that came from the Chem was said to be Cenomanian age, and actually said to be lower Cenomanian. Fine. If you date those limestones, if you are lucky enough to find an ammonite in their limestones, and there are some but they're rare, it's a very distinctive ammonite. It's called Neobilites vibrianus, and it's really distinctive because it's got a serratic suture. So if you knew nothing, you would say, oh, these are Triassic, yeah? So it's an ammonite, a Cretaceous ammonite with a serratic suture. But the thing is that if you know that, you find it, you recognise it, right? And it is very well dated all over the Middle East. So it's a really great marker. So we are absolutely confident that the limestones on the top there are late Middle Cenomanian. You know? And that's a really good date. There are also foraminifera in there that have been used for dating. But the boundary between those limestones, which are called the Akrabou Formation, and the Kem-Kem group underneath, is line sharp. There is no transition between the continental fasces and the marine carbonate ramp. Now we know that there's not 300 million years in that disconformity. We know that. But there are lots of places down there where we've just been to, for instance, Saf, where we've seen the Kem-Kem sitting on rocks where there's a massive, massive difference in time. But we know there's not a massive difference there. It's not an angular unconformity, it's a disconformity. But there still could be a few million years missing in there. What happened for the dates that were given to the Kem-Kem group was that a bunch of dinosaurs that were found in the Bahariya Formation of Egypt, Spinosaurus, Carcharodontosaurus, and also a shark, a skate with a shark saw. So not a sawfish, not a saw shark, but a saw skate called Onchopristis. And I'm sure that you'll find an Onchopristis here. That shark, or skate, turns up in Bahariya, and all three turn up here. So it is perfectly reasonable to say that the strata here are the same age, more or less. Vertebrates aren't the best of zone fossils, right? But more or less the same age. Now somebody had said that the Bahariya Formation was Cenomanian. So the people who worked on here, and let's face it, they were vertebrate paleontologists. Now, I've been brought up through the geology ranks to be a paleontologist, which makes me far more intelligent than any paleontologist that has come through zoology ranks. Okay? They know nothing about the rocks. They know loads more than I will ever know about organisms, but they know nothing about the rocks. So when they're given a fossil and they say, oh, this is Cenomanian, they believe it. They don't challenge it, they believe it. Now, I challenge everything. I don't even believe the geologists who tell me things at a certain age. I always want to know, why do you think it's Cenomanian? So what I did was, when I started researching on this, I checked everything, and everybody was saying the Bahariya is Cenomanian, and these fossils are the same, therefore this is Cenomanian. So I checked all of the literature to find out why the Bahariya Formation was Cenomanian. The Bahariya Formation, which came under that heading of continental intercalare, they didn't date it. They also dated the limestones above, and they came up with the same conclusions because their limestone has a very characteristic bivalve, looking like a gryphea, to be honest. Everyone know gryphea, devil's toenail? There's a type of devil's toenail in here. And and they also have Neobilites. So they have no problem dating their limestone, but they actually have the same problem dating the Bahariya Formation. So really, we don't know the age of Spinosaurus and Carcharodontosaurus and Onchopristis in Egypt. It's the same problem that we have here. And you have to be careful that you don't do this circular arguing. You know, oh, well, we say it's Cenomanian, so we say it's Cenomanian. So, well, the Moroccans say it's Cenomanian, so we Egyptians will call it Cenomanian. You know, you're going back and forth. Okay, so that Cretaceous, Lower Cretaceous sequence could be They could be bloody well right. It could be the Lower Cenomanian. But there ain't no proof that it is. But it could also be Albion. There could be a bit of a stage missing. It could be Aptian. If you go to Brazil, if you go to the Santana Formation, you will find a spinosaur. That spinosaur is called Irritator. But it's probably the same as this one here. Yeah? And the Santana Formation is Aptian. And we've dated that in all sorts of ways. We've even used Rudis bivalves to date it, and various other things, and polynomorphs. And now, recently, people have been finding foraminifera. And there's a lot of similarities between the fish fauna of the Santana Formation in Brazil and the one here. And it might not be unreasonable, and I'll stick my neck out, because I see some of you are recording this, so it's I might have to live up to it. This could be as old as Aptian in the lower part. It could be as old as Aptian. Okay, so now you know that there are some problems with the age. Now let me tell you a little bit about the stratigraphy with those sandstones. That is the bottom part of the Chem group here. If you go over there, did you say about 120 kilometres over to Tarda? You can actually go lower. The basement. About 122.
You say you don't trust, you have to challenge.
I trust you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely faithfully.
Go ahead.
You've always got me to where I want to go, so
ahead.
you know. The trouble is, when he lies to me, he lies so convincingly. I reckon it must be about 100 and something kilometres. It's a long way, and you wouldn't want to go in a four-wheel drive all the bloody way. So, I think that the topography has got some big holes in it, because there is a much thicker sequence below this Chem. The Chem here is not as thick as the Chem over at Tarda. So maybe there was a subsiding basin, a horst, maybe we're on a graben here, maybe there's a horse, the other way around, a graben there and a horst here or something like that. Anyway, so we can, in this area, easily divide the Chem group into two distinct formations. You can see some light colours and some pink colours up there. Those rocks are quite argillaceous, a bit silty, but argillaceous. We would call them mudstones or silty mudstones, and they are a formation called the Alphus Formation, and you won't find many fossils in there. You will find some thin limestones towards the top, full of little gastropods, and these gastropods, if you can find a good one, and there's hundreds of them, never that well preserved, have got some little ridges around, spiralling around them, and some little plicae as they go around. And they are an animal called Paraglorconia. And Paraglorconia is quite common in Britain in the Aptian. Now, I'd loathe to use gastropods as a zone fossil, yeah? But can you see just below the big crowning blocks that are about to fall off, some little thin hard beds sticking out? I've never been up there, but I almost guarantee you one of those is a gastropod limestone. I've traced it for tens, if not 50 kilometres over there. I've certainly found it at Duira, and I've certainly found it at Uzina, and I've found it down at Garasbar, which is a heck of a distance. A hint at maybe an Aptian age there. Okay, so everything else under that is even older still. We could be down in the Bohemian in a minute. We'll soon be on the Isle of Wight looking at the Wessex Formation. It then starts to get sandy. Can you see there are some reddish outcrops sticking out, and you can see a bit of a badlandsy sort of. It's starting to get quite sandy down there, and now we're in a separate formation called the Ifezuan Formation. If you're writing it down, it's Ifezuane, Ifezuan. I don't know where Ifezuan is. I know where Alphus is. If you drive from Arfoud, you come to Duira. If you carry on driving, you come to Alphus. So Alphus.
Well, it's playtime in the Chem beds.